All right, well, let's kick it off. I'm Greg Gallant, the CEO and co-founder of the Shorty Awards. I'm so glad everyone's able to join us here for our fourth session in the Shorty Social Good series. Today, we're really excited about the conversation. Let's talk about LGBTQ plus equality. Before I introduce our moderator, I just want to set a little background. The LGBTQ plus community has been a huge part of the Shorty Awards ever since we started it, and something we're really proud about having as part of the Shorties. We have an amazing group of panelists here today that will be introduced soon by our moderator. They all either have won or are finalists in the Shorty Awards or represent organizations that have, and there's some really amazing organizations and influencers that we have. I think any one of them you would have all tuned in for, so to have them all together here today is really meaningful. A little bit of housekeeping. We have the Shorty Social Good Awards coming up November 12th at everyone's favorite venue, which is your living room or wherever you have your computer set up in your home. It'll be live streamed this year. It's usually a big event in New York City, but this way we actually ironically will get many more people tuning in. So we're really excited about it. And we're cutting our carbon emissions too, bringing everybody together without any flights or travel. So it should be a fun one. November 12th, put it on your calendar, and we're going to send out info on all of our channels soon. Also, if you want to win a Shorty Award, that's our Shorty Social Good Awards coming up on November 12th. The Shorty Awards, our flagship event honoring the best of social media and digital, is coming up next year, but entries open this October, October 26th. I guess it's only a day from October now, which is wild, but October 26th, just in time for Halloween. So you can start thinking about getting your entries together for it. And with that, I'm really excited to introduce our moderator, who's been a friend for a while, Rob Smith, the CEO and founder of the Phluid Project, a barrier-breaking, gender-neutral clothing brand. You can see his shirt on display right now. From fiscal contributions to influencers to partnering on corporate training, Rob and the Phluid Project are working tirelessly to bring more equality and equity for fashion and beyond. Can also say back when our office was open, their stores just a few blocks from ours, and I got the chance to go over there and have a cup of coffee. It was really a special, welcoming place. So really excited that we can do more with Rob and the Phluid Project. And with that, my role here is done. Why don't you take it away, Rob?
You got it. Thanks, Ian. I really appreciate it. So everybody, welcome to a conversation around LGBTQ equality, equity, and inclusion, I would add. And I'm Rob Smith. I'm going to be, my pronouns are he, him, his. I'll be your panelist. And, first of all, I just want to say I'm really glad this conversation with the team that is in this space with us. And I'm also really grateful to have this conversation outside of the month of June. Often we squeeze all of this conversation into 30 days and it's exhausting. And now we can actually just spend some time because we exist 12 months a year, 365 days a year or so. Glad to have this conversation. So let's start off with a couple introductions and then we'll get into some topics. So let's go first. Ambreen.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Ambreen Molitor. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And I am the Senior Director of the Digital Products CoLab, which is an innovation lab that works on building and scaling both our sex education and healthcare services through innovative forms of technology.
Hello, everyone. I'm KUDZI. I'm the Director of Creator Community at TikTok. I've been there for a while, and what I really focus on is building a sense of community amongst the people who, what we call the people who make the creators, but also shining a light and uplifting underrepresented groups, everything from the Black community and particular for this conversation, the LGBTQ plus community. And what we are thinking in our approach, similar to what Rob says, is to really have pride, what we call Pride 365, so not have everything be in June, but think of how we support and amplify our LGBTQ plus community throughout the year.
Great, thank you. Let's go to Mark next. Oh, Rich, sorry, Rich.
I've been called worse. That's no problem. Hey, everyone. I'm Rich Ferraro. Really excited to be here today. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the Chief Communications Officer at GLAAD. That role at GLAAD is interesting because it's not just the brand communications for one of the most visible LGBTQ organizations, but GLAAD's mission is all about using all forms of media, whether it's news, entertainment, video games, social media, to create change and to tell stories that create change. So my team at GLAAD not merely works on brand communications like typical comms ops, but we also do GLAAD's activism and GLAAD's campaign work.
Thanks, Rich. Let's go to Rain. Rain next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rain Dove. Rain like in the sky, dove like the bird. My identity is that I am I. And I'm probably best known for my modeling work. I'm modeled in everything from Vogue to Grazia, and what we consider to be men's, women's, and everything in between. But I also am an activist, and I do a lot of work with communications with people who have oppositional ideologies to not just our community, but other communities as well, with the goal to try to figure out how to bridge a gap that obviously seems to be becoming a wider and wider divide. I love the work that I do, and I love that this work has brought me here to talk with you today and to be with these incredible panelists.
Awesome. Great, thanks. Thanks, everyone. Let's get started. So, the first question I want to ask the panel, what are some impactful ways that we've seen social and digital media used to address issues to amplify representation for the queer community? Rain, you want to jump in, think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of different ways in which we've seen social and digital campaigns help out various intersectional communities, and especially the queer community. Obviously, one big barrier for the queer community, trans community, I like to call them the GRSM community, the gender, romance, and sexual minority community, just because I don't like to exclude anyone's identity out of the letter complex that I use. So when I say GRSM, just so you understand what I mean there. But with the GRSM community, one of our biggest obstacles is socioeconomic justice and the socioeconomic hurdles and barriers that we have to overcome, because oftentimes we aren't able to access certain careers and opportunities because of our identities being deemed too political or not able to gel with a working environment. One of the great things that our community has created and social and digital campaigns have created is the opportunity to hire queer and trans and basically GRSM voices, intersectional voices, and to infuse money into those communities directly into the pockets of artists. And on the billboards, by showcasing intersectional communities on billboards, we send these little subliminal messages into communities that normally might not reach across the aisle to say hello to us, that we are living successful lives that are worth celebrating and that actually are able to break the capitalistic barrier of being deemed profitable. One of the things that's happening right now that's really unique is that before social media, we had the Anna Wintours of the world telling us what was in and what was not, what's the color of the season, what's not. But now we get to determine as a community and as a world what we think is valuable. And so we're seeing something that's happening that's never happened before. It's incredible. I don't think we've quite figured out how to handle the political element and beauty of the power that we have now. But essentially, our world is now choosing to lift up the voices that we want to see profit, succeed, and be monetized, as well as be celebrated. So we're seeing people who wouldn't normally be seen as a trained actor or a trained model, or maybe it's a person who comes from a community that's a lot more protected and quieter, and we're able to see them literally go viral overnight. We're able to see them start a hashtag campaign overnight, have people in the streets, get social justice, and I think what we're seeing is a lot of social and digital campaigns realizing that the power of their products is now really in the hands of the people and not in what they used to do, which was like social manipulation through paid strategists. There is no strategy anymore. The only strategy that campaigns and brands have now is to fucking, sorry, I didn't swear, to listen. You gotta listen. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to say that word to bring it home.
I'll try not to swear. I'm passionate. I swear because it's just honest, you know.
Great, it's great. KUDZI, do you want to jump on to this? Oh, we can't hear you. There you go.
The number of times I've been on mute and like we've been used like in Zoom world for so long, I just don't know why I'm still like this, but you know, here we are. In TikTok world, I think, you know, at a base level for those of you that haven't used TikTok, our mission is to inspire creativity and to bring joy, right? Which sounds like a really pithy phrase, but in order to actually do that, you need diversity like all around from all different groups as well. And then for the LGBTQ plus community, we'd always been in this world of like, let's allow people to be their most authentic selves, and they were, and being creative. But this past June, something really interesting happened where it was almost so, it was called My Pride. Our whole campaign was so beautiful, so fun, but it was almost so elevated that a lot of our creators actually felt unsafe. They were now in this world of, you're so visible that you're so easy to be attacked, right? So we had to do a lot of work to think through how can we really use social media to, or a platform to allow people to create, but also feel safe online. Like that person that goes viral is like Raina's saying, is like prime for people to attack them because now everyone can see who they are. So how do we allow people to do that on TikTok, be their creative viral selves, and still feel safe? So, you know, we engage with our community every day. It's part of my job. And, you know, we got a lot of feedback from them, and we've had to rejig our approach. So before kind of planning the rest of Pride, it's like at a trust and safety level, how are we making sure that creators are safe? So we've kind of evolved our hate speech policies, which are really strong, but even stronger, really have concerted efforts around underrepresented groups, and then harmful content. So now there's a whole work stream around, you know, removing videos that are targeting specific groups. And while it may not seem like the fun stuff, I think having that is really important so that you have a baseline where people can actually create and be safe. Because being yourself is one thing, but being attacked for being yourself is like actually worse. So that's what we've been working on at TikTok.
Yeah, how do you, is there like a committee that reviews this before the decision's made? Like, how do you decide what to pull down and not to pull down? Because I'm glad you're doing it. How do you make that decision?
Not my like whole area of expertise as a whole trust and safety policy team, but it's in general, it's a combination of technology, policy, and then like actual human moderators, because there's millions upon millions of videos, you know, uploaded every day. So you can't like, there's not enough people to look at every video. So you have to use a little bit of like machine learning, a little bit of like actual policy. And then when things get egregious, like actual humans. And then those actual policies, the thing with policy is that there's always like a gray area, right? For example, I could make a video as myself. Someone could make a video, you know, that's a little unsavory, and I could potentially do a reply video that's actually counter speech. And then if I take down the original video, my video would get taken down too. Like because it's like linked in the product. So like a lot of those things are like a little tough and technical, and it could feel like that the person doing the counter speech, which we actually want on TikTok, is being attacked for speaking out. So it's a lot of like technology, policy, and like people. Very complicated. The team that does that are beyond talented.
I can imagine. That's incredible. So listen, we're going to go into a few more questions. I just want to let everyone know, and I forgot to do at the beginning, if you have questions, throw them into the Zoom chat. We'll try to get them during the conversation if it's appropriate. If not, we'll get to the end. We're going to talk. We're going to do this for about, let's see, another 30 minutes or so. We might go a little over, but we want to save time for question and answer. But if you throw something up there and it seems like the right thing to grab, I got my eye on it. Okay, let's focus on some of the folks that are tuning in right now. So when you're speaking about brands and brands who are looking to enter this space with, you know, accuracy, with representation, with authenticity, what are some strategies or practices that go into place so you can come in and be well received as opposed to turning some people off, you know? So I guess it's either you don't do anything or you do it right, but a lot of people are afraid to do anything because they don't want to do it wrong. So how do we help companies, brands, people walk into this space and do it well? Gosh, I'm going to go to Rich first on this.
Yeah, thanks. And it's interesting how you phrase that, how people are worried about getting it wrong. So I started at GLAAD in 2008, which I started right before Barack Obama was elected president, and also right before voters in California voted against marriage equality, and they voted in favor of Prop 8 and to ban marriage. So the world was such a different place when I started. And when you were speaking, it made me think, like, when I started at GLAAD, companies and brands were worried about including us because it would be seen as too controversial, and worried about including queer images because they were worried about getting backlash from people who didn't accept LGBTQ people. Now, I think brands feel the imperative to include us in ads, in marketing, in PR campaigns, but they're worried about getting it right, which is a good place to be. And I think that more brands need to include us. We did a study with Procter & Gamble that we released earlier this year to try and get a sense of where non-LGBTQ people are when they see us in media. And we defined media as television, film, ads, and PR, public communications from brands. And it was really great headlines that I was really proud to work on to get out there, because we found with P&G that nearly 70% of non-LGBTQ Americans, sorry, my Outlook is beeping. All right, sorry about that. So nearly 70% of non-LGBTQ Americans were accepting of seeing LGBTQ people in ads and in media, but better than that, nearly 70% said that their favorability of the brand, their perception of the brand increased when the brand was inclusive. This wasn't LGBTQ people, it was non-LGBTQ people. So now we have almost 2/3 of people saying, yeah, we want to see LGBTQ people. We want to know that our brands are inclusive of us. And for us at GLAAD, it was really important because we've been doing a lot more work to get global brands out there on these issues. You likely know GLAAD's work in Hollywood and in newsrooms, which we've done since GLAAD was founded in the 80s. But we've started to expand to more lanes of media, including advertising, and to push for representation and inclusion in ads, because they're pervasive. So there's a lot of people out there who don't watch, for instance, Pose. I wish Pose was mandatory viewing for everyone, right? But there's a lot of people who choose not to watch a show like Pose. However, so there are LGBTQ images in the media not reaching those non-LGBTQ people. Advertising is pervasive. So when ads include us, we're reaching people who might otherwise not see our stories on shows like Pose. But like you said, there are best practices, and I think everyone's kind of heard the idea of make sure you bring queer people to the table from the onset. GLAAD started a branch of GLAAD called the GLAAD Media Institute, which is all about consulting with media, including brands, on how to include us and bringing voices to the table if they're not represented on the GLAAD staff, because you're going to come up with a way better, more creative, and you're going to come up with a more well-received ad or marketing project if you have queer people working on it and if you have community input from the onset. And there are a couple of other little tips that I wanted to share too. One is making sure we get a lot of requests at GLAAD to include queer talent in campaigns from our various corporate partners and from the brands that consult with us. Make sure when you're building your budgets out that you build out budgets to pay those queer influencers, not just queer influencers, but all of the talent who you want to participate in these campaigns. They deserve compensation for their time. So one of the things that we've been trying to hammer home to brands is make sure that you are compensating LGBTQ talent when they appear in your campaigns. Make sure you work with queer people from the beginning to draft those campaigns. And then when you're ready to promote, think about LGBTQ media and LGBTQ organizations as ways to get them out. Our LGBTQ media, it's been dying a really fast and frightening death. There have been major layoffs. There have been major closing of LGBTQ media outlets. If we don't have those queer journalists watching what's happening to our community, we are screwed. So we need to make sure to support LGBTQ media and brands that are taking on LGBTQ people in ads and marketing campaigns. They should make sure they're supporting LGBTQ media outlets when they roll them out.
That's a great point. Yeah, so there's most of the diehard traditional queer media that we have is really shrinking dramatically. It's probably it's hard to find it. So yeah, those are the people that are watching out, folks that are watching out for us. I did want to ask you one other thing too. So it's also about the entire team working in the campaign. So it's also, a lot of times folks focus on the model or the person in front of the camera. There's also as much work that can be done behind the camera, an entire process of building out a campaign.
It also helps if you're looking for earned media on a campaign to talk about some of the queer people behind the camera who are writers on it, who are directors or photographers. That becomes part of your earned media story when you're out there pitching your campaign to journalists to cover it. And it makes for a really powerful story, and one that if the campaign is creative, is authentic, is powerful and diverse and intersectional, one that the community is going to probably applaud.
Absolutely. And can folks go to you if they're looking for a director, or can they go to GLAAD to help find some of these resources?
Yeah, we do a lot of behind the scenes work that we don't often talk about, we don't take credit for, but GLAAD tends to be a real good networking and connector for people who are looking for talent, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. A lot of Hollywood productions use us for that, and we've gotten some great results. And really, it makes for really powerful storytelling when the casting is authentic and when the crew is authentic as well.
That's great. That's wonderful. KUDZI, can I turn to you and get your thoughts on this?
Yeah, when I think of brands, I think of them, at least right now, in like TikTok world version. So either advertisers or brands trying to do something on TikTok, or like TikTok, the brand itself. Since I think people look at it, maybe I'm in it too much, as like its own kind of being separate from like other platforms. From that side, we actually have a creator diversity collective that we launched that is really about having creators from different backgrounds, including the LGBTQ plus community. And we give them a lot of insight into features we're building, campaigns we're planning, programs we're launching, and they give us a lot of feedback, and like we incorporate it and we have to respond back. So I'd say like listening to that creator is really, really important. We are a platform where, and I tell people this all the time, all the other departments, I'm like, there's no app without the videos, and the videos come from people, and the people are co-creators. So like you might as well listen to them deeply. And a good example was we were launching our Pride initiative for 2020, and we're going through imaging, and it just felt very, very too rainbow, and I think everyone is like past the like slap the rainbow on the logo stuff, because it's like, okay, do you care, or are you just like doing it to move on? So we had a lot of back and forth, and I'm a creative person, but I'm not like a creative labs, visual identity branding kind of person. And it was a lot of it was from creators and users and our team, like talking about like, how do we make sure TikTok shows up correctly? And then again, like rejigging that like at the end of June, after kind of a lot of the racial unrest, and making sure like intersectionality was at the core of that. So that all came from our creators. And then from the branding side, luckily on TikTok, because it's all algorithmically based on the creativity of the video. Like a video will flop if a brand or an advertiser was trying to tell people how to make the videos. The creators know best how to kind of reach as many people, be successful. So brands and advertisers have learned that the best way to win on TikTok is to act like a creator, and then to collaborate with the creator. So you find actually brands and advertisers taking the creative direction completely from the creator. So when it comes to content that resonates with the audience on TikTok and the LGBTQ plus audience, it's all coming from the creator. And that's been really cool to see, because they've learned when they've tried to do it their way, where they do it like post this beautiful image, it will not work on TikTok. That's just not how the community works. But if the creator says, let's do it this way, this is what the LGBTQ plus community wants on TikTok, it works. So, the core of all of that is like, you have to go to the source, you have to listen. And then internally, we have a pretty strong LGBTQ plus contingent at TikTok. So it's cool. So we run a lot of things by our internal teams, and our culture is very vocal, all the way from if you're an intern all the way to like the CEO, you can like respond back. So if you're not feeling something, it's a really cool place because you get to say it. And I think people feel very comfortable speaking when something doesn't feel right or doesn't resonate with the community. So it's all about listening, but listening with like action.
Yeah. I feel like Rain, you might want to jump in on this too. I feel like you've got a point of view here.
Yeah, I mean, we're in a really fascinating time right now. That balance is really difficult because it's hard to be compassionate, I think, for a lot of people who really do feel that capitalism has had such a devastating impact on our community. And they are angry at brands for potentially profiting off from their stories. And at the same time, what they don't realize is that we have to make a choice. Do we want change? Or do we want to like just burn down the system? I think in some senses, many people would prefer to burn down the system, but unfortunately that would actually erase a lot of employment opportunities, and it would erase a lot of stability for a lot of innocent people. So the best way that we can move forward is to find a way to give realistic steps for brands to take so they can change and make the changes. We talked about this when we were prepping for this panel and getting to know each other, that it would just be so wonderful. And I think what the world is really crying out for is a sense of clarity and organization so that we can like maybe give different brands different tiers of steps that they can take so they can agree to like a 5-year plan on how to integrate it. So their boardrooms are as diverse as their billboards, so that if they're making a beauty product, just because it's on me doesn't make it beautiful. I want to know that the people who made that product, all the way from the people in the factories to the fields to the people behind the design team, I want to know that everyone went home feeling beautiful at the end of the day and celebrated for the work that they've done, and they're fairly compensated. It has to be a team effort. And I know that might not be able to happen overnight, but I think if we work together and we put our heads together after this panel, I'd love to see what the audience has to say about that. I would love to see us implement a system everyone can agree to, and we can hold big brands accountable to a time limit to make these shifts that need to happen. But we also honor the fact that at the end of the day, their business, they are beholden to a certain sense of capitalism, and their job is not to create socio-political change, it's to feed, water, and shelter their employees and stay alive. And so we have to honor that on both sides. They need to honor us as the consumer. We need to put our money where our mouth is. And if they want our money, they got to change. It's just the way that it goes, you know?
Good point.
Yeah, I would just want to add 2 more things. One thing is, I just want to call out that as a brand, one question that I feel like is helpful to ask yourself is, if you are doing a campaign for the LGBTQ+ community, is it just so you can let them know that you're aligned, or is it because you want to help support the LGBTQ+ community? And I think that framing of the question will help you understand if you're like doing this from a vanity level, or if you're doing this for a much deeper, impactful level. I think the other learning, you know, at myself as an ally and just as working both as an organization in partnership with the community and a representative of wanting to help the community, is really understanding that LGBTQ+ is incredibly diverse. It encompasses gender identity, gender, sexual orientation, gender expression, and it is not a one-size-fits-all adjective or definition. And so you have to be very, very thoughtful about when you say you're aligning with this community, what does that mean? What does that look like? Where is that representation needed most? And how can your brand, product, or service really help either one particular or specific community? Or, you know, it's hard to say that it can encompass all of it. And so just wanting to call those 2 points out is, I think, a very helpful exercise that I think will go a long way for a lot of brands.
That's really, really good point. And I would take it a step further to also recognize and embrace the intersectionality within the queer community. So how do you factor in race and abilities and other, you know, body size and on all of the parts of us, you know, so we don't fit like a box, you know, which is cis presenting, you know, Caucasian, you know, queer person. Like, we really start to like look at the full dimension of the queer community. But thank you for calling that out. I want to shift now to talking about collaborations and talking about some things and experiences that you've had in successful collaborations with brands, and brands that have done it well and what they've done well and what the campaign looks like. I feel like everyone can talk about this. So let's start first with, I'm going to go to Rich first.
Cool, thanks.
Wow.
I want to talk about a campaign that we did again with Procter & Gamble, actually. And I think P&G is an interesting brand to look at when you look at LGBTQ inclusion, because one of the things they did last year was they released a video about P&G's somewhat problematic history with LGBTQ inclusion inside their walls and then outside in their public communications and marketing. So they owned their history. And I think that's key for brands today, to own it and now to do better and to come up with the tangible ways to do that internally and externally. So the campaign that we worked on with them was called Home for the Holidays last December. And they had a video that featured the transgender chorus of Los Angeles singing a really nice holiday song. And then throughout this ad and video, you saw some of the members of that chorus go back to their homes for the holidays. Some of them went to homes of their biological family. Some went to homes of chosen family, because for some queer people, we're not welcomed at our biological family's homes for the holidays. And through that, you got to meet some of these trans people who were in the chorus and learn more about them and what their holiday was like. And then there was a lot of additional digital footage of them and media outreach to tell the stories of these real people who were featured in the Procter & Gamble ad. And I flag it for a couple of reasons. One is because they worked with an incredible organization, the Trans Chorus of LA, and shone a spotlight on a group that needs it within our community. So they used their major brand power and their dollars to do that. And two is they featured real queer people, and it was all about telling their stories and humanizing them in a relatable way around the holidays. And also, this wasn't done in Pride. I think we see so much during Pride Month from brands especially, and then you never hear from them the rest of the year. So kind of like what Ambreen was saying, at GLAAD we say, you're not marketing to a community, you're joining a movement. And that just doesn't happen during June, that happens throughout the year. So that happens during Mother's Day, Father's Day, Pride Month, Black History Month, the holidays. What's your LGBTQ outreach for spots outside of Pride Month? And you need some, and you need to continue to have that conversation with us if you're going to be authentic about it. If not, it's a one-off and the community is going to see through that. But I did want to say too that we don't want to scare off brands from including us. I think there's a lot of power in advertising. I think it just has to be done the right way, and also to make sure that those brands have the right policies internally and are on amicus briefs for the Supreme Court when they're debating our rights, that they're using their brand power, not just in ads, not just in advertising, but throughout the year in advocacy.
Yep. And if I remember correctly, that campaign got a lot of earned media as well. Is that right?
It did, yes. We helped on that. Yeah, but suddenly it was CNN.com writing about how beautiful this ad was. And that reaches so many people, not only from the trans community who likely have not seen themselves in an ad from the world's biggest advertiser, but it also reaches moms and dads and parents out there who might have trans kids. And when they see a trusted brand like P&G accepting and honoring the trans community, perhaps they're going to rethink if one of their kids were to speak out a bit about being trans.
That's great. I wanted to just jump on this just because you mentioned P&G. So the Phluid project is working in a campaign right now with This Is L. L is a tampon and pad line, organic, and they also donate a lot of product to third world countries, which I think is great. But they came to us with this idea. And I think it's just sharing the process to Phluid to say, hey, we want to do this campaign. So the first thing we did was kind of understand why they want to do a campaign of people have periods, which is pretty powerful. And it's done normally through like a cis female experience. And so the idea that people have periods, and we first did a focus group to educate them with a group of people who are both transmasculine and non-binary folks, and really educated them in the space. And then we did a training program for 2 hours for everyone working on the program around gender identity, gender expression, just talking about all the things that Ambreen mentioned, is, just educating everyone. And then we did a video shoot, and we ensured that the talent on both sides of the camera, both the individuals on the front and the individuals on the other side, because there is a sensitivity around one, supporting the community, but also understanding pronouns and ensuring that you're seeing the person and speaking to the person and in the way that is the way that they would like to be respected. And then how do we found influencers to launch the campaign? So it's been really a really cool process, and Phluid loves to do that stuff, just putting out there for companies who are looking to get into this space. We like to hold your hand all the way along and ensure that it's really well received. So I just think that the team at P&G, and I wanted to just build on what you said, is really got it going on. And Brett Miller, who leads the LGBTQ part of the organization, is really pushing it, and they're a great organization. But really, it shows that here's a consumer goods, massive company making really good decisions and doing it right. And I think that if they can do it, anybody can do it. So yeah, let's go to Rain next.
Well, this is a really interesting thing because, when I was really just connecting so deeply with Rich about, when I first came into this industry, it was not acceptable for me to be on both a men's and a women's board, or to not even have a gender identity. It was very confusing to people, and they said it was too socio-political to book, that I would always just be some kind of editorial model working for trade, but that I would have a hard time booking paid and commercial work because my identity and my aesthetic would take away from the focus on the product. That I was too distracting as myself to sell something. And ironically, sometime in my career, within the first couple of years, things shifted. It just made a big pivot. And suddenly, our story was what was selling the product. People weren't just looking for faces. They were looking for people with interesting stories and interesting voices, because people wanted their consumers to feel like they weren't just buying a product, they were buying into a better future. And so I experienced this really interesting dichotomy of going from having a Marc Jacobs casting, in which they cast me and asked if I would be willing to identify as a trans man during a runway show, in order for me to be able to change in the men's room. And I was like, I don't identify on that level, but I'm comfortable changing wherever. And I lost the job because I wasn't willing to change my identity. And then I went to a place where I started working, where, things shifted pretty rapidly. And now we have campaigns that are doing it right. And one of the first big campaigns I booked that did it right was Dove. Dove has always been on board with different bodies and voices. They've been doing it before it was popular. That's why I love working with them. When I first booked them, I thought it was Dove chocolate. So I had a big chocolate party because they told me they were sending me 100 bars in the mail. And then I had 100 some bars to my house. It was really sad. I was like, we had so many things we were supposed to do with that chocolate. Anyway, and then I actually had a brand, Zalando, Nike, the things that they did right, where they made sure to ask me how I felt about the experience going in, what are my preferred pronouns, how do I identify, they wanted to know my story. But for me, I really felt like they wanted to know my story not because they were not just trying to get things right to make me comfortable, they were also trying to produce a story so they could sell the product. And that story was very valuable. I want to talk about one company real quick that has done things right from the beginning, and it's actually a queer company called Tomboy X. Tomboy X, when they first brought me on, they didn't have a lot of money, but they were like, we're going to find a way to compensate you as a model. And I wasn't really a very known entity at that time in the community. They had me on, and they couldn't compensate me to the level that they felt would be fair, appropriate, so they gave me some shares in their company. They made sure I was comfortable, that I was put up in a safe home, a safe space, that I had an advocate on set, and they were very respectful. Later on, Tomboy X got in trouble moderately recently for fat phobia, and for a potential transphobic thing, altercation with some models. Instead of trying to fight this and deny it, they immediately reached out to the community and said, how can we do better? And we got to sit down, not just myself, but other people who worked with Tomboy X, and we got to tell the CEO of the company, this is how you can do better. And it's a humbling process, but we're gonna have trans people, fat people, queer people, anyone who feels aggrieved, take over your Instagram right now, and we're gonna tell people what we felt was missing. We're gonna own this brand for a moment. And Tomboy X let their entire brand image just, they left it into the hands of the community that they had offended. And you know what? They made things right. They relinquished control, and now they have liaisons on set to be a buffer for people who are different intersectionalities. They shifted and they changed, and it was humbling and it hurt, and there were a lot of tears, but the community loves and trusts them more. And now they're about to go on the stock market. They're about to go public. That's how big they've gotten, because they've taken the time to listen. And I really hope that brands can do that. That thing that you said about P&G owning their history, I think all brands need to just do that, own it, and move on. It's so brave.
I agree. It's interesting, if you don't know Tomboy X, which is kind of surprising about this, is they're very body positive. Like they go up to like quadruple XL, you know, and they're super, and they're queer owned, and it's really, even somebody who's queer owned, and probably their values and principles are so aligned, it probably hit them so hard to the core to be accused of being transphobic and other things. So that's really powerful what they did, and they let the community share their voice. It's a great story. Thank you. Ambreen, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, there's just two things that I want to bring up. One is that, you know, I think another element to this is recognizing as a leader in any of these organizations. And Rain, I love this story about Tomboy X. Also, I love the story about the Dove bars. I love all the love that you're giving to the bars. But I think one thing to call out is just the humility leadership needs right now, right? I think another element to this that will be helpful and will go a long way is for leaders to make sure that they stand up for the community, that they stand up for their mistakes, that they own to it, and that there's an environment set up for not only the external facing community, Rain, that you mentioned, but like I'm certain that internally what happened with Tomboy X was also set up for success, where like there's an environment to fail, there's an environment to learn, and there was, you know, an environment set up for everyone to come together. And I think that is a really big moment and a lot of companies where you need to allow the leadership to stand up for what they're representing, and making sure that there's, you know, everything going back to the behind the scenes moment of like behind the scenes, everything that's happening, that we're doing it together and it's in unison, and it's not breaking the company or the community apart. So just doubly want to emphasize a lot of the things that a lot of people have said. And just as someone that is in a position to make some decisions around campaigns, it's helpful for me to allow, to have the voice to stand up, but also like the levels above me at Planned Parenthood allow me to have that voice, right? And allow me to stand up for my team, and my team has the ability to do the same. So I think that's really, really important for anyone that's in a position where they can, you know, work towards like a representation for the LGBTQ plus community. So just want to add that.
Thank you. You know, I'm gonna stay with you for a second, if you don't mind, and just talk about Planned Parenthood, to talk about the misunderstandings around Planned Parenthood, that, you know, that it's people think about one issue and one issue only, and all of the good things that you do and how you navigate that, and also how you've been really adapting to inclusiveness, especially around the definition of gender and how it's evolving. So you want to just spend a little time on that, since we got you off mute?
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. So I think the biggest fundamental change that we've created first started with communications, where we've changed our vocabulary internally and externally. So we say people instead of woman when we talk about whom we serve. And that's because we're really taking a moment to observe that, you know, as I mentioned, that there are a spectrum of gender identities, gender expressions, and sexual orientations of folks that are staffed and employed by Planned Parenthood, of advocates that support us, of patients that come through our door, right? And so that the vocabulary changed, and with the vocabulary, a lot of our products and services are evolving too, right? Going back to the products that I oversee, one specific example that I can bring up is Spot On, which is our period and birth control tracking app. It gets a lot of love because we have normalized the idea that everyone who gets a period is not necessarily a woman, right? There, you can, and align to that too, that we have in a spot on educational video that we created, is this idea that a menstrual cycle is similar for a member in the trans community in terms of like, they have these emotions of annoyance and frustration, and then also celebration. But then there's this moment of gender dysphoria too that we need to understand and hear. So there's a lot that we do on the app with the language, right? There's also in the design, it's the period and birth control tracking app is not hot pink with a lot of flowers. And we get so much love for that, just to make, you know, gender neutral design. We also do it in the copy. We also do it in a lot of the ways that we're communicating, right? So we have an AI-powered sex ed chatbot called Rue, and their name was, you know, more to lean towards a gender neutral opportunity there. But like the way that we answer those questions are always thinking about it from a perspective of this person is not always asking from a cisgendered identity or in a heteronormative opportunity. So those answers are incredibly inclusive with that mindset. Also, our sex education is, you know, we're evolving our sex educators that come and help over 1 million people. We're identifying that sex education is very heteronormative. It's borrowed from the 70s, and it's not reflective of 2020 at all. So we're looking to figure out ways in which we can make the sex education curriculum a lot more inclusive. You know, we could go on and on about this, but the summary is, I can really do this all day. The summary is that we're really changing the vocabulary. We're changing the way that we're building our products and the services that we offer. You know, over 200 clinics have services for the transgender community. And all of this is in support of making sure that there's nothing special or different about any of these experiences that people in the LGBTQ plus community feel or have. It's part and parcel of, you know, what we can offer as Planned Parenthood. And there's always more to be done, of course, but that's really the mindset that we've taken on at Planned Parenthood, is just changing the way we talk about it, really naming that what we're doing is reflective of everything we build and do, and then continuing to support the LGBTQ plus community, you know, as they are for us, you know, as advocates and as folks that are coming into our door as patients. So
we can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing, you know, and an entire spectrum of work. And it's really, really just with great gratitude for what the organization's doing. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have 10 minutes left. And what I thought I would do is just open it up now to each person to talk about, well, you can talk about whatever you want. You're going to get like a couple minutes, but I'm going to tee up and just say, is there any person or campaign or company that is really bringing hope and inspiration or new ideas or a fresh perspective in a campaign or anything that's really inspiring for you? So KUDZI, I'm going to do you first, if you're okay.
Yeah, of course. I live in creator land. I spend way too much time on the internet every day. I should. It helps me do my job well. But someone who's really inspiring to me is a creator by the name of Bowman. He goes by Bowmanizer on TikTok. You may have seen him, maybe not. But he makes these, he lives in Canada actually, but has a big following here. He was making these original kind of reality show based videos in like 15 to 60 seconds and just going viral. He's part of the LGBTQ plus community, and I contacted him because the team was interested in working with him. We got him an agent and a manager, and he's gone on to thrive. He was actually part of our TikTok trailblazer list for the LGBTQ plus community in June. And just seeing someone be their authentic self in their creativity, but also being kind of a shining light in the community, and seeing all of these creators being like, I want to be like Bowman. Like, imagine, it shocks him that you don't have to pretend to be someone else. You could just be your original self. And he's gone on to work with Netflix and like MTV. And I think he's got a lot of really cool things coming out, and he's owning his identity. And for TikTok, which can be a launching pad for talent or for people to find their identity, because there's, you know, so many facets of the LGBTQ plus community that go to TikTok to express themselves, to see someone like them be them full selves, but make it all the way like breaking through to mainstream media, which is not everyone's goal, but it's still important to see those people and faces, has been inspiring me and inspires me to continue to do the work to highlight creative voices from the community. Everyone should follow him.
I wrote myself a note to follow. Thank you for that. Rich, you want to go next?
Sure. So 2 GLAAD campaigns to call out. One, GLAAD.org/action is our register to vote and spread the word about voting section. Really easy ways to order mail-in ballots and check your registration, and do digital door knocking since we can't do in-person door knocking this year. And then GLAAD.org/Spirit Day is the day on October 15th where the world wears purple or grows purple online. It's a day of support for LGBTQ youth. And I think we've been doing this campaign for about 11 years now, and was recognized by the Shorty Awards previously for Spirit Day. GLAAD.org/Spirit Day. And I think this year our goal is that in this dark cultural and political moment that we create a day where athletes, celebrities, brands, teachers are visible about their support for queer youth, and where they could go on social media and see that support. And then someone who inspires me real quick, Daniela Carter, is someone who I've worked with for a long time. She was in a documentary that I worked on about transgender youth at MTV, and now she is working at a creative ad agency. And what she's done is, with this agency, created a website called Daniela's Guest Book to highlight the voices of Black creators in the ad industry, people who, what we spoke about earlier, who could be at that creative desk from the beginning, who can direct things and who can produce things. And her website, again, Daniela's Guest Book, and then on her Instagram page for Daniela's Guest Book, she's created a weekly series where people who have made it in either in the ad industry or in Hollywood speak with up and coming Black talent. And she's had Janet Mock and Ashlamir Preston and the CEO of GLAAD moderate conversations with up and coming talent to try and give them a platform. So I love how she's not just merely creating talent, but she's trying to redefine and reinvent the ad industry itself and get new talent jobs in the industry.
Thanks. Rain?
One company that's doing something that's it's not a campaign, it's just their work is so important. It's GC2B. They're an incredible Black and Latinx owned company that makes binders, and they have sent me all around the world with boxes of binders to give out to people who need them, especially in countries where surgery and other kinds of support therapeutics are just not available. They're doing incredible life-saving work, and there's a really great campaign. If you go to their page, you can check it out, in which, if you can't afford a binder, people have donated the funds for you to get one. So it's just a great, simple, real amazing cinder person kind of story. The second thing,
Marley?
What?
Isn't that Marley?
Yes,
yeah.
Marley. They honestly, I'm surprised they haven't won awards. They're doing amazing work. Just like, I cannot speak higher of these people. They are truly, truly the best of our community, and they deserve so much success. The other thing I would just mention is I got to do this great documentary. It's all shot and it's in its post-process called Joy Revolution. It looks at finding joy in communities that we've written off through propaganda around the world. Places like Colombia and Russia and Afghanistan. On this journey, I have met so many incredible trans, queer, all on the spectrum of the GRSM community, individuals who are leading light in places in which they are really making sacrifices, and life-threatening sacrifices, in order to make sure that people are able to love who they love. These people aren't able to have access to certain things like social media without it potentially putting them in prison, and the work that they go is often going to be undocumented for the rest of their lives, but it's going to save so many people. I would be very happy to provide contact details to anyone who's interested in donating to them for their efforts, because they definitely deserve that support from this community.
Thank you. Ambreen?
Yeah, there's two folks that come to mind. The first is Aaron Phillip, and we had the pleasure of working with her in one of our educational videos that we were awarded last year for the Shorties for, and she is electrifying. The confidence level that she has is amazing. For folks that don't know Aaron Phillip, she is a Black woman who's a disabled model and is very open and eloquent about talking about her transition. She's like, honestly, we went through so many takes with so many different sets. The moment she stepped in on stage, we had one set. She talked so eloquently. It was done in 5 minutes. She was perfect and impeccable. And the confidence is, I think, what I admire about her. And particularly because I think the confidence that exudes her comes a lot with a lot of the things that I was monitoring behind the scenes. So we also had the pleasure of meeting her father and her brother who came with her and who were just like an amazing support system. And they were just such great cheerleaders for her. And I think that is so important for, Rich, you brought it up when you were talking about going for some of the trans folks at a particular company, like going back home for Christmas looks very different. And it's something that we all need to just celebrate when the community and your family is just so supportive, so open and loving to the real true version of yourself. It's just really inspiring. So I'm just inspired by her. I'm inspired by her family. I'm just so humbled that I was able to have that experience. And the other person I would call out is Tyler Ford, who was one of the trans micro influencers that was able to talk about their period. And I just want to note how difficult that moment is for a lot of folks, just in general, who have their periods. But Tyler was impeccable in the way that they were able to express what they knew, but they were also calling out all the time that there's so much more research to be done. There's so much more unknown in that world of periods for the trans community. So just want to give a shout out for them, for their confidence that they brought, and for just calling out that there's work to be done. It's really important.
That's great. Great call outs. Great. I'm gonna just, if I can share, I'm inspired, and I'm just saying this because I'm just working with them, but we've got at Phluid a program called Get Phluid. It's gender expansive training, and the work that they're doing and the training that we're doing for corporations and really educating folks on, from the history of gender to where we are today, to educating, breaking out all the different pieces of sexual orientation away from gender identity and gender expression, and so just the team of non-binary transgender folks who are the trainers and the program creators inspire me. So if anyone's interested in stepping into this space, we're here for you. So it is now 5 o'clock and we're wrapping up. I knew that we would have no time for questions and answers, but I'm glad that everyone got an opportunity to speak and to share their insight. I want to thank the panel for really, I don't want to go. I want to keep talking with you. It's really inspiring, each one of you, and what you're doing and how we're showing up and creating space and visibility and representation in an authentic and honest way. So thank you for that. Thank you to the Shorty Awards for giving us this opportunity to have this conversation in the month of October or September, and to continue the conversation and to support the community all around. So thank you very much.